Hey, Ken, this is Scott Holt. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Welcome to Let's Rock.
Well, thank you very much.
I guess we should change the name to Let's Blues for this interview.
Just for this interview, yeah, that's pretty cool.
I listened to the album, and it is bluesy.
Oh, well, thank you.
Absolutely love it.
Well, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate that.
Seriously, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I was reading your bio on the website. I thought my first concert was pretty cool.
Right.
And then I read your bio, and it said your first concert was an Elvis Presley concert.
That was a pretty cool first concert, actually.
Yeah, you kind of kicked my ass on that one.
What was your first concert?
Well, I'm a child of the 80s. It was actually Def Leppard and Uriah Heep.
Well, that's pretty cool.
It was an awesome concert, but, I mean, let's be serious here. Elvis.
Well, it's gonna be tough to beat Elvis any day of the week, so yeah.
So when was that?
I was 9 years old, so it had to be like 75, maybe. 75 or 76.
That was pretty close to the end.
Yeah, it was. That jumpsuit Elvis was my Elvis. I came up in that era, so I thought the jumpsuits were cool, but I'm an Elvis fan all the way back to the beginning. So.
Oh, I'm a diehard Elvis fan. Been to Graceland a couple times and would go again tomorrow if I could.
Oh, dude, I've been so many times I can't count it. My daughter's tired of hearing about it, so I want to take her. And she's like, I took her one time when she was like 4. And so she doesn't remember anything about it, but she claims she does. She goes, "Oh, Dad, I've already been there. I don't want to go back." Like,
yeah, you can't appreciate it when you're 4 years old.
No way.
Actually, it's funny. I've met a bunch of guitar players that have kind of influenced me. But when I met Scotty Moore, it was the spaghetti legs. I could hardly stand up. It was so amazing.
I was the same way, man. I got to meet him. He wrote a book a few years ago, and he was doing a book signing. And I went and met him, and he was signing my book. And one of my favorite guitar solos of all time is the solo from Hound Dog.
Right.
Because, it's kind of a 2-part thing. There's that break in the middle, and the guitar just comes back in, just crashing in. And I've always, had a real strong feeling for that guitar solo. So I told him that. I said, I really appreciated your playing on that song. And he's real quiet. He goes, "Well, when I cut that solo, I was just imagining a guy breaking out of jail." I said, "Yeah, exactly what it sounds like."
Exactly. Oh, that's classic. He is something else, that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's get into this Earl and The Agitators. Okay. Like I said before, this is a fantastic album. It's been on repeat for about a week now. And how did this whole thing get going?
Well, Roger and I were introduced to each other several years ago by a mutual friend of ours, and they have a studio down in Florida. So I went down to Florida and hung out with Roger for a week or so, and we did what musicians do. We just started writing songs and jamming and playing together. And Brian Bassett, the guitar player for Foghat, was also there, and we were just having a really good time. We just clicked musically, and we clicked as people. We became fast friends, and we're just really enjoying, hanging out and making music. And they were just getting ready to start recording their Foghat record, Under the Influence, that they put out last year. Mm-hmm. And so some of the songs that we were writing ended up on their record, and some of my playing and singing ended up on their record. And in the course of doing that, we had about 13 or 14 songs left over that were just sitting there, and we're like, "Well, what are we going to do with these?" And then we said, "Well, let's put a record out." And then the next thing was, "Well, let's name the band." And it just there wasn't really a plan to it. It just sort of fell into place.
So this is just a big jam session that ended up on a CD.
Pretty much. And a lot of the songs were written, really, really quickly. The one that springs to mind is "Where's the Rock and Roll." That song took as long to write as it takes to listen to it. I mean, Roger was playing a groove on the drums, and I started playing the guitar, and the next thing you know, we had the song together. So it was just a really organic thing,
I imagine. I mean, I play guitar. I'm not a professional by any stretch of the imagination, but it's hard to find chemistry like that. It's tough to find chemistry like that. Where something clicks that quickly.
It's like any kind of relationship. You can't manufacture it. I've been in musical situations that other people have tried to fabricate something and put a bunch of us together and thinking that on paper this is going to be great, and sometimes it just doesn't work. You just don't have that chemistry with somebody else, and you don't match up. But me and Roger, we like a lot of the same music. We're both big Johnny Cash fans. We're both big Sun Records fans. And Jerry Lee Lewis, and I mean, we hit on all these notes that we both really appreciated, and we just liked each other as friends. I mean, he's like a big brother to me.
And you played with Buddy Guy for a bunch of years.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the same kind of deal with that? Did you?
It really was.
Really? Eh?
Buddy was. Yeah, I met Buddy I just started playing guitar. I'd probably been playing for about 6 months, and my dad was working down in Florida, and he called me and said, Buddy Guy and Junior Wells are coming down here on tour. Have you ever heard of Buddy? And I said, yeah. And I told him about Buddy owning a club in Chicago. At the time, I thought he owned the Checkerboard, which was the first club he owned in Chicago, but he had sold that club. But my dad calls the club looking for Buddy, and since Buddy didn't own it anymore, they were just giving out his home phone number. So I give my dad his home phone number, and he calls him and says, I got a son that wants to learn how to play guitar. Can he meet you when you come down here? And Buddy said, sure. So all that was unknown to me. So when we go to the show, I'm blown away. I'd never been to a club in my life. I'd never seen a blues show. And Buddy was playing through a Marshall and had 100-foot chord and went out in the street and did everything. And then I got to meet him, and he invited me to his hotel the next day for a guitar lesson. I spent about 6 hours the next day just sitting in a hotel room, with him telling me stories about Little Walter and Sonny Boy Williamson and playing guitars. And about a year later, he called me up and offered me a gig, and I was with him for 10 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It was. I was too young to be scared when I got the job, and it was only after some time away from Buddy that I realized what an amazing opportunity he'd given me. And he was Buddy, and he still is to this day. But he was really good to me. Like he was real patient with me, because I'd only been playing for about a year, and I'd never been on stage, never been performing, so I'd never been in a band, so I was having to learn everything from the ground up. And he would let me, I could ask him questions. I mean, I was constantly quizzing him, backstage before a show. Hey, how'd you play this? How did John Lee Hooker play this song? And he would just show me. I mean, he was always really, really patient and really kind, and he is to this day. I love the guy.
That's an amazing story, really. Like, that's one of those dream stories you hear about, but it's just a fantasy usually.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of ruined me in a way, because I thought, well, that's just the way it is, and it'll always be like that, and it's not. It doesn't happen to everybody, and it doesn't happen every time, and the music business can be a really, really tough, cold world. So when you do find somebody that's kind, it's a really precious thing. So,
well, the thing I've noticed about doing all these interviews is that everyone's really kind. Like, the musicians are really kind.
Well, I agree with you, and I think the reason that is because it's such a tough business, and you when you're a musician, if you decide to be professional about it and make it a living, you get humbled real quick, because success doesn't. There's not a direct correlation between talent and success necessarily in the music business, and that's a tough lesson to learn, because we spend so much time and energy when we're learning, practicing, and trying to get good at our instrument, and then you get out into the world and find out that that's only a small percentage of whether or not you're going to be successful is how well you can play.
And it's all about who you know and timing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm digging it. It beats the hell out of digging ditches. So
that's the truth. Yeah, you're living the dream, even if it's not 100,000 seat stadiums. Whatever, you're playing music for a living.
my worst day at the office is still better than most people's.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So let's talk about this name, Earl and The Agitators. How'd that come about?
Well, Brian came up with that. I'm sure it was after a couple of bottles of Foghat wine, but we were sitting around after recording one day, and we're like, man, we're going to do this record, and this would be great, and we need a name for the band. And Brian goes, Earl and The Agitators, and we said, perfect. So that was just it. It was just off the cuff. It was like everything else about this project. There was no plan, and I'm sure on most days the Foghat manager, Linda, who's just fantastic, but I'm sure she was ready to kill us pretty much every day because we just kept piling the work on her. It was like, okay, now we're going to make a record. Now we're going to go on tour. She's like, oh, great. Okay, yeah.
More work.
Exactly.
Yeah, it actually says Earl and the Agitators All-Star Band featuring Scott Holt.
Yeah.
Is that the official name of the band?
We call it Earl and the Agitators. The All-Star Band part of it was we were at one point we were trying to figure out how to take it on the road, and obviously with 3/4 of the band are guys that play in Foghat, so it's hard to correlate those two entities. Foghat tours all the time; they don't really have time off, and that would be the only time we could do Earl and the Agitators shows. So most of the stuff we've done up till now has been either opening for Foghat or playing on the same bill with Foghat. Mm-hmm. And we toyed with the idea of maybe bringing in some different musicians, different rhythm sections or whatever to be able to tour with it. And Roger and I kind of looked at each other and said, well, but I want to play with you. And he's like, yeah, I want to play with you. So that idea kind of went out the window. So now we're back to how are we going to make this thing get out on the road? So we're working on it. We were actually we're looking at maybe doing some touring in January. We've got a cruise in February that we're playing on and some gigs later on in the year. So one way or another, we're going to get it out on the road because we just have too much fun playing together.
Which cruise are you playing?
It's the Rock Legends cruise.
Cool.
I'm actually looking really forward to it because Buddy's going to be on it too. So it'll be a chance for me to get to hang out with him. I hadn't had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with him in a long time, so it'll be fun.
Oh, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you just took away my next question, which was plans for a tour. So you're working on that.
Oh, yeah, we are working on that, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, now one thing I noticed about the album is there's some really cool cover tunes that you did. The Chris Christopherson song I thought was fantastic.
Thank you.
What's it called? Sunday Morning Coming Down.
Yeah.
How do you choose covers? I mean, when you think about the blues and all its offshoots, there's a billion songs you could choose.
Sure.
How do you?
And a lot of times, doing a cover of a song doesn't do it justice. I mean, I'm pretty passionate about music, and if somebody's gonna do a cover of a song, I want them to do something different with it or do something original with it. Otherwise, if you're going to cover a Muddy Waters song and you're going to play it exactly like Muddy Waters, I'd rather just go listen to the Muddy Waters version. Right. So when we were getting ready to do some of those songs, a lot of them were just suggestions. And you got to remember, we were doing this without any kind of plan. So we were like, I wonder what it would sound like if we did Johnny Cash, I Guess Things Happen That Way, but let's do it like a punk rock song and just see what it sounds like. And then we liked it. And Sunday Morning Coming Down was actually a suggestion of Roger's. He liked the song, and he thought it would be something that we could do a good job on. So I think Brian's slide work on that song is just beautiful. It's one of my favorite parts of that song. Is his playing on it is just beautiful. So
I used to be in a little cover band in Korea when I lived in Korea, and that was always the hardest thing, was finding songs to cover. And we weren't recording. We were just
you want to do something different with them, That's the tricky part about it is depending on what your motivation is. Like if I was playing in a band that was a cover band, that was doing a job where people were coming in to hear us play other people's music, that's one thing. But when you're, I'm using air quotes, when you're an artist to make it sound real pompous and fancy, but you want to try to do something different with it, to give a different a different version or a different angle on it. So.
Right. Okay. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions that go way back. What was your first guitar?
My first guitar was it was a knockoff of a Telecaster. I think it was made by a company called Lotus. I'm sure it was Korean or Chinese or something. And I had that for probably the first 6 months that I was playing, but I desperately wanted a Strat because Jimi Hendrix was my hero. That's the reason I started playing guitar, was I heard Jimi Hendrix for the first time. And I said, well, I've got to do that. And so my parents got me a Squier Strat for Christmas, and I played that guitar until, I couldn't keep it in tune anymore. And then I finally saved up my money and got a Strat. And I played Strats for about the next 25 years.
Wow. And what are you playing now?
I'm playing a G&L ASAT, which is kind of the G&L version of the Telecaster. It's sort of Leo Fender's last word on the Telecaster, which is kind of funny that I've come full circle back to a Tele from where I started. But it's just a great guitar, and it does everything I want it to do. So,
do you find a big difference in the sound and playability of a, say, Strat to a Tele?
Yeah, when I go back to my Strat, which I've still got my main Strat, after I got with Buddy, Fender was doing a signature model for Buddy, and so they were coming out to the shows and sitting backstage with us and talking to Buddy about what he wanted in a guitar. And he's sitting there one night and he goes, why don't y'all make my guitar player a guitar too? And they're trying to negotiate this deal, and so they're like, okay, yeah, we can do that. So they built me a Strat, and I played that thing. That's been my main guitar for a long time, but I put it down about 5 years ago when I picked this G&L up. But the difference in sound between the two of them, the G&L has a clearer sound, a brighter, more cutting tone that really works, in the live setting, and it sounds great when it's recorded. The Strat, I don't know whether it's because it's older or what, but it's got a more of a softer, rounder tone to it that, I guess maybe my ears aren't as good as they used to be, so I like that bright sound. I can hear it better.
Nice. Yeah, that picture I saw on the website of you playing the Buddy Guy guitar, the polka dot guitar, is that the one you're talking about?
No, that was actually, I was sitting in with Buddy one night. I was playing his guitar.
Oh, okay.
Now my Strat was just a regular Sunburst Strat. It's beat all to pieces now. Most of the finish is off of it. But I love that guitar, man.
That's awesome. Was it hard to take a solo standing next to Buddy Guy? I mean, I'm looking at a list of some of the people you've played with. B.B. King, Albert Collins, Eric Clapton, Carlos Santana. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. Is it intimidating?
It wasn't at the time because, like I said, when I got with Buddy, I was real young, and I think that really protected me from stage fright because I was just too dumb to be scared. I didn't understand the magnitude of what I was doing. And even when somebody like Eric Clapton would come and sit in with us, I still am a big Eric Clapton fan, and I wanted to, play well in front of him, but it didn't. It kind of worked the other way. It just sort of energized me. I probably played too much and played too fast, as opposed to being scared. So,
yeah, I imagine it would be, you're just trying to impress these guys.
Well, yeah. I mean, how cool would it have been if Eric Clapton had appreciated my playing? So, that was always kind of the goal.
That's cool. Another quote I read on your bio was, "My goal as an artist is not only to entertain, but to enlighten and inspire."
Mm-hmm.
I really dig this quote.
Well, thanks. It's true. I mean, that's the goal. I mean, what Buddy did for me, he inspired me to be a professional musician, first of all, when I first saw him play. Then he basically educated me. I got a ton of free guitar lessons standing at his side, for 10 years watching him work and asking him questions and stuff. And it gave me a career path. you know, when I started playing guitar when I was 19, and I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do in life. I didn't have any real solid goal. There was nothing that I was, you know, really passionate about until I found the guitar. And once I found the guitar, my whole life was basically mapped out. You know, I knew what I wanted to do, and it was a real, you know, freeing feeling to know, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And then I was just like a guided missile after that. I didn't think about anything but playing guitar and learning about the blues, and, you know, so if I can inspire somebody else to do that, you know, or encourage somebody to do that, that's, you know, my goal.
It's funny how powerful music is. I mean, I remember when I was 13 years old and my brother was listening to a Van Halen record and my jaw dropped to the floor.
Yeah.
You know, and a week later I bought a guitar.
Yeah,
was that?
I said a lot of jaws dropped to the floor when Van Halen came out.
Oh, no kidding, right? But this was 5 or 6 years after he came out. This is just the first time I had ever really heard him. And
right.
It stuck with me forever. I mean, a week later I had a guitar, and, you know, I never took it as seriously as you did. But, you know, every time I pick up my guitar, I think of that moment when, hey, this is when I started playing guitar. And it was all, yeah. I mean, he inspired me so bad, just that one guitar solo. Right. If I had never heard anything else by him, it would still be that one guitar solo that made me lose my mind. You know? Yeah,
I mean, I think all musicians have their touchstone moments, you know, and just people in general. You know, music plays such a powerful role in a lot of people's lives. I mean, you know, music can you know, mark events in your life. You know, if there was something going on, a certain song happened to be playing, and now when you hear that song, it brings you back to that moment. You know, or you know, it's just really, I think, for the most part, I think the power of music is completely underrated, you know.
Totally agree. Yeah. Now, you also got to play with Mitch Mitchell and Billy Cox.
Yeah,
now,
I did. That was crazy.
Now, this is something, you know, it's like what we were talking about before. Just, you know, you get to play with Buddy Guy, and then you get to play with the band of your major influence.
Exactly, and it was nuts, man. I had a guy in Nashville, close to where I live, that had done a record with me. We'd put out my first record, and it was just an independent thing. Little, you know, he was trying to start a label, and he called me up one day. I was on the road with Buddy, and he said, "How would you like to do another record?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." And he goes, "Well, why don't we get Eddie Kramer to produce it?" Eddie was the engineer for all the Hendrix stuff. And he said, "We'll get Billy Cox and Mitch Mitchell to play on it with you." And I was like, yeah, I would very much like to do that. That would be very fun.
That's unreal.
So the funny part was we were going to rehearse. Like, they rented a place to get ready to go into the studio to figure out what we were going to play. And I was getting all this information about Mitch. They were saying, you know, don't mention Jimi Hendrix. You know, he doesn't like to talk about Hendrix. He doesn't want to revisit those days. So by the time they showed up, I was just nervous as a cat. I mean, I didn't know, you know, what to say or anything, you know. And so we start playing, and we're just playing this real nondescript blues, you know, slow blues instrumental, just kind of feeling each other out. And it's really going nowhere. I'm really getting kind of bummed because I'm thinking, you know, this is my big chance to play with Jimmy's rhythm section, and we're playing this, you know, this stupid, nonsensical, you know, mishmash. And so we kind of ended the song, and as soon as we ended it, Mitch goes into the drum intro to Spanish Castle Magic. And so I just immediately started playing it, and then almost as soon as we started playing it, I stopped. I was like, oh no, you know, we're not even supposed to be talking about Hendrix. I looked back at Mitch, kind of shocked, and he's just kind of peering at me over the drums. He goes, "I was testing you." And so after that, it was all cool, and Mitch was such a sweetheart. He moved to Nashville for a minute. He was living there for about a year, And when I would play gigs around town, you know, there'd be a little knock on the dressing room door on a break or whatever. And here's Mitch, you know, coming around to see me, and he'd you know, tell me stories about Jimmy and playing with him in those days. And the funniest stories were when he would be telling me something about himself. And he would, like, he was telling me one story. He goes, yeah, I had a mini bike and I was riding it. You know, I was renting a place in upstate New York and had this mini bike and wrecked it. And you know, we had to go to the gig. We had a gig up there. And I said, upstate New York. He goes, yeah. I said, you talking about Woodstock? He goes, oh, yeah. In his mind, he's just telling a story about his mini bike, and I'm like, yeah, I saw that show that you guys played at Woodstock. That was something. So,
yeah,
he was a really
just a gig.
Sweet guy. Yeah, it was just another gig, somewhere up there in New York.
That's hilarious. I wonder why they wouldn't want to talk about Hendrix. Just tired of it?
You know, I think it was. I don't think it was true. I think whoever was telling me that, and I can't remember now where I was. I don't remember if it was Eddie was telling me that or somebody else, but I think it was just them. I think it was their perception of, you know, of Mitch, and because Mitch never had a, you know, I would ask him about stuff he did with Jimmy, and he would tell me, and you know, it was never an issue, and it never seemed weird. So,
wow,
I don't know. As soon as I got to know him, I just threw all that other stuff out the window. I said, well, you know, I'll make up my own perception of the guy, you know.
Yeah, we're talking Hendrix, man. We're talking Hendrix.
Yeah.
You gotta. You have to.
I'm not gonna miss that chance.
Okay, I'm gonna fire a couple rapid fire shots at you here. Just answer real quick.
Okay.
Do you remember the first gig you ever played?
Yeah, it was a keg party on a flatbed truck, and I was horrified. And I never wanted to do it again. And then my next gig was with Buddy Guy, club in Toronto, Canada, owned by David Bowie.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
David Bowie owned a club in Toronto?
He had a club in Toronto. I think it was called the Diamond. And
really?
yeah, and that was my first gig with Buddy. And my amp blew up. I ended up playing through a little transistor practice amp. It was, you know, it was a bizarro night. But yeah, that was my first gig.
How old were you on the flatbed truck?
On the flatbed, I just started playing guitar, so I was 19.
So you were late getting to it.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it worked out good because I was out of school, but I didn't, you know, I was still living at home. I didn't have any real responsibilities yet. So I could practice for 8 hours a day, and nobody was really, you know, on me to do something else. So pretty much I would get up in the morning, pick my guitar up, and then I didn't put it down until I fell asleep.
Wow. That's dedication.
I just wanted it so bad, man. It never felt like work to me because I just wanted it so bad.
Okay, here's the hardest question I ever ask anybody. What's the best guitar song ever recorded?
I'm going to go with Voodoo Child, Slight Return, just because that's one of my favorites. I think Jimmy's tone on that song is it's incredible. And I just, you know, being a big Jimi Hendrix freak, I've got pretty much every bootleg that they ever put out. So I've heard I think there's 12 takes of that song before they got the master. So I've heard that song from the first time he plays it with the band and how it develops, and I just think it's an incredible song. So I'll go with that.
Cool. I'm just gonna recap what I said at the beginning. The new album is fantastic.
Thank you.
Shaken and Stirred. Hopefully you get out on the road.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out one way or another, and we'll get out on the road and get out there and come see the people.
Looking to getting into the Ottawa Blues Fest.
Yeah, you know, I've played the Ottawa Festival a couple of times in the past, and I always enjoyed it. And I would love to have Earl and The Agitators play on that festival. It would be great.
Yeah, that would be really fun. I don't know who's been announced this year yet. They're starting to trickle out, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great festival.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, get up here and play a show somewhere here anyway.
You got it, man. You
right
got
on. And thanks so much for the time. And
hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And yeah, I'm inspired now. I'm going to go play my guitar.
Go play your guitar. It sounds like a solid plan.
Right on.